A small history about the Kenya banking system. Indians are the first people to operate a bank in the region, and it was in Zanzibar, and the bank was called Jetha Lila Bankers, somewhere around 1880. It is no surprise that we have many banks of Indian origin domiciled in Kenya to date. Guys, smart people ask questions, smart people seek facts, smart people solve problems, but the smartest people challenge themselves among their peers. Join the first of its kind, the army of smart people, and lead the world. I am your captain, Duncan Robert Ahuya, your number one public informant. Please subscribe, like, comment, and above all, invite your peers. So welcome again on our second episode on the Kenyan financial sector. We are trying to really understand what the financial sector means and what it entails. And in the process, I have broken the financial sector into the different segments that it is made of. And to start us off, which is the main subsector of the financial sector in Kenya, I'm trying to educate Kenyans and to educate the world about how the Kenyan financial system, especially the banking system, operates, who are the major players, who are the people responsible for overseeing the activities within the financial sector, and therefore breaking it down further into the banking sector. So this is the second episode. We've already done the introductory episode, and I hope that you shall stick with me as I try to go deeper into these details. Now, because as you know, some of these things have a lot of information, and I thought if I just speak about it without noting down some notes, I will forget about some very important elements. And that's why with me here is my notes, which I have written down to guide us on this episode. I hope you will not mind me reading part of it as I explain the details that I think are vital and important for you. A small history about the Kenya banking system. Indians are the first people to operate a bank in the region, and it was in Zanzibar, and the bank was called Jetha Lila Bankers, somewhere around 1880. It is no surprise that we have many banks of Indian origin domiciled in Kenya to date. Guys, Indians have had such a big influence in the East African region, as you can imagine. And even up to now, you can see how they're doing some great, tremendous things in the manufacturing, in the retail space. And just to let you know how we arrived at that, they started all the way back in the 1880s, where they set up the first bank in Zanzibar. Yeah? And the first bank now in Kenya was established in Mombasa in 1887, and with the first one in Nairobi in around 1911. Now, the first commercial bank to be established in Nairobi was National Bank of India. However, the first locally owned commercial bank in Kenya was and still is Cooperative Bank. It was not a commercial bank before. It was a cooperative society that was initially supposed to be taking care of farmers. It was later followed by National Bank and Kenya Commercial Bank. So Kenya's banking sector has grown tremendously, of course, to attend to the ever-growing economy and changing market dynamics. This sector has 10 very important institutions that have been established by the law and other prudential guidelines. Now guys, as the economy progresses, as the economy grows, and as technology comes and takes over most of our economies, things change. More opportunities are created, more risks are identified. There are more ideas to steal, there are more ideas to mismanage and to misuse financial institutions. Therefore, that means that even the banking sector has to keep changing. It has to keep upgrading itself to a level where it can take care of these changes that are showing up. Now, and as a result, there are 10 very important entities which you have to know about the banking sector in Kenya. Now, if you get to understand these 10, you already have a very, very good understanding of the outlook of the Kenya banking sector. We have the commercial banks and mortgage finance institutions, microfinance banks, forex bureaus, and money remittance providers, credit reference bureaus, credit information providers, representative offices of foreign banks, digital credit providers, other financial institutions such as non-bank financial institutions and building societies. And finally, to close the list of the important players in the banking sector, we have risk-based supervisory framework. Now guys, let these things not scare you. What this means is that if you look at the entire scope of the Kenya banking sector, there are 10 very important institutions that you need to know what they do, because all the services you receive be served by one of these institutions that I have just mentioned. Kenya's banking sector is guided by different legislations. These are supposed to subject banks to certain requirements, restrictions, and guidelines. Regulations are good because they create transparency. No one ever wants to transact in any business without knowing how they are protected, because in any market, there is something called information asymmetry. Banks know something that you don't, and you know something that the banks don't. And to ensure, therefore, that both parties are safe, regulations have to exist. In Kenya, the following guidelines inform the banking sector. For banks to operate, for all these entities that I've just mentioned to operate effectively, they have to be guided by some rules. There are rules in everything in the economy. There are rules in every institution that you go to, every school, every organization, every company that you work for. There are rules. And these rules are not supposed to make people's lives hard. They are supposed to make it to help to mitigate risk. They are supposed to help to standardize processes and to ensure quality. Yeah? And so within the banking sector, there are 6 laws or legislations that have been passed specifically to take care of all the banking activities. And you probably definitely know them. Now, number 1, we have the Constitution of Kenya, which of course we all are under, or we all adhere to. Number 2, we have the Central Bank of Kenya Act. These are the legislations that guide the activities of the Central Bank of Kenya. Then you have the Banking Act. This takes care of the commercial banks. And then you have the Microfinance Act, which takes care of the microfinance institutions. And then we have the National Payment System Act. As you all know, banks are in the business of receiving and paying and making payments. They give out loans while they receive deposits. Now, for all that to happen, there has to be a payment system. And for that payment system to work effectively and efficiently, then it has to be guided by specific rules and regulations. Now, those rules and regulations are contained in the National Payment Systems Act. And then finally, we have the Kenya Deposit Insurance Act 2012. Those are the 6 regulations that guide our banking sector. Now, remember, we had mentioned the 10 most important players in this sector. And I'm going to introduce you one by one to each of these and to just give you a glimpse and an understanding of what they do. You'll be shocked just how much you thought you knew about what these institutions do. But don't worry, that is why we are doing what we are doing, and we are going to explain it in detail. To start us off, let's start with the Central Bank of Kenya. Now, you know it is headquartered at the Haile Selassie Avenue, Nairobi, with 6 other branches. I know most people don't know that the Central Bank of Kenya has other branches in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Eldoret, Nyeri, Nakuru, and Meru. The CBK is responsible for formulating monetary policy to achieve and maintain price stability and issuing currency. Guys, monetary policy is just the policy that guides the amount of money in circulation. This is the determination of how much money should be moving around our economy. Because ideally, the money that is moving around the economy should reflect exactly the true and fair view of the economy. So, there shouldn't be too much money when the demand of the money is low, or the demand in the economy is low. And also, when there is demand in the economy, people should not lack money to transact. And that is the job of the Central Bank of Kenya. They do that, and they do that very, very well. Central Bank of Kenya also provides oversight of clearing and settlement systems. So you remember the system I told you about, the system that is responsible for payments. Central Bank of Kenya is the one that provides oversight. It looks through the activities that are happening within that system and ensures that the rules and the regulations are followed. And finally, the CBK, as you know it also formulates foreign exchange policy and manages foreign reserves. You know, every country has foreign reserves. Back then, before we had foreign reserves, we used to have gold. So you will store the wealth of your country in gold, and you are able to obtain very important resources that your country will need, especially during the wars. People who had high gold reserves had stronger economies and they were well protected. Now that transitioned into foreign currency reserves, and in this case, the major currencies that are acceptable across the board. Yeah. So the Central Bank of Kenya is responsible for managing those. Now, the next institution that you need to know is what you call the commercial banks and mortgage finance companies. Commercial banks are exactly what you know. They are in the business of receiving deposits and issuing loans, and then through issuing those loans, they get interest as their income. Mortgage finance institutions give loans for the purpose of acquisition, construction, improvement, development of land in Kenya. The repayment is secured with a mortgage or charge over land. Now, in Kenya, we have 38 commercial banks and we have one mortgage finance institutions. I think you know which one that is. Now, the third entity in Kenya is the microfinance banks. These are banks that play a very vital role in the economy. Commercial banks have one limitation. They seclude a bigger chunk of the population that operate in the lesser informal sector or microeconomy. Microfinance banks, therefore, provide a complementary role to commercial banks by ensuring that there is financial inclusion. It deepens financial markets and enhances financial services. In Kenya, we have community-based microfinance and nationwide microfinance banks. There are a total of 14 microfinance banks in Kenya. So guys, what microfinance do? A while back, only a few people could access loans. Only a few people could access banking services. And as a result, there was a very big population of people who were left out. And therefore, microfinances, they came to just complement the banking system because they bring together all those other people who are not able to access, for various reasons. And as a result, they increase the deposits that are available for the financial markets because money is needed in the financial markets for lending purposes. So as long as you're able to reach out to those people, then you're doing a great job. And that is what microfinance banks do. And then the fourth one, we have forex bureaus and money remittance providers. Now, forex bureaus, as you know, they are in the business of fostering competition in the foreign exchange market. A while back, before we had forex bureaus, the spreads for exchange rates were very large, and as such, there was no competition. And competition fosters efficiency, and it makes the individuals, all the organizations get very market efficient rates for exchanging their currencies. And then we definitely now have the money remittance providers. You know these guys. So in case you want to move money across borders, these are the guys that do that. There are 74 bureaus in Kenya and there are 20 money remittance providers. The next stage, we have the credit reference bureaus. Reference bureaus, these are the people that Kenyans don't like, or these are the people that most people don't like because they give you a negative rating. As long as you are not complying with the repayment of your debts, they have your data and they provide your data to the commercial banks and all other financial institutions. So they are licensed to collect credit information on individuals and businesses. There are only 3 licensed bureaus in Kenya. Now, the same way microfinance banks, they complement the commercial banks. Even the credit reference bureaus have another institution that complements them. And these are called third-party credit information providers. So if you thought that your information is only in the hands of credit rating bureaus, then you are wrong. Because there was a very big chunk of the population whose information or data was not being available to the major financial institutions like commercial banks. Because maybe you're not transacting or you don't have accounts with them. And when you go now to borrow money or to ask for credit, they don't have a reference point. So they included many other institutions where the microeconomies, people have either deposited money or they have borrowed. And therefore, these are the things that we call third-party credit information providers within our banking sector. There are around 647 non-deposit taking circles in Kenya that are approved. We have 7 self-help groups. We have 10 development finance institutions, 3 parastatals, 1 learning institutions, and I know it is Kenyatta University, and then 1 community-based organization. But the next entity in the banking sector that is very important for you to know are these offices called representative offices of foreign banks. Guys, we have foreign banks that will wish to have a presence in Kenya but not yet to operate. Therefore, they are allowed to set up representative offices. And these offices have specific roles that they do. They can do marketing, they can do liaison, and they can undertake research, but they cannot do banking services. So they are actually there, and in Kenya we have a total of 10 representative offices of foreign banks. And then number 8, we have these institutions called digital credit providers. Now, these guys have revolutionized the credit sector because, again, a while back, you couldn't access credit. You will need money, but you wouldn't get money because you don't meet the requirements that commercial banks had back then. Now, digital credit providers have revolutionized credit, and they have created an undiscriminatory marketplace for lending and access to credit. Now, there are 32 licensed digital credit lenders in Kenya. Now, the remaining 2 are something called the non-bank financial institutions and building societies. Now, we don't have any of this in Kenya as of yet, but there are rules and regulations already made up just in case one will come up soon. And the final one, it's not an institution, neither is it an entity, but it's a framework. The economy has developed. The economy has changed. It has grown. It has expanded. The population has grown. The GDP of the country has grown. There is more money being transacted. There are more facilities being provided. There are more financial instruments that are being used to provide services to the population. And therefore, it means those things have introduced new risks, new opportunities. And as a matter of fact, it was necessary for the Central Bank of Kenya now to come up with something called risk-based supervisory framework that will enable it to look and to regulate all these institutions that are responsible for the Kenya's banking sector. Now, guys, I know these things sometimes they sound like too technical stuff, but just understand that we have a banking sector that has players that are responsible for providing services to the general public. And once you understand who these people are, then you know exactly what they do. You will always know exactly where to go when you need banking services. I don't think any other institution will come up outside those that I have mentioned unless they are newly licensed and registered after this video has been produced. But as of now, those are the ones that I know and I'm aware of. I hope I have helped you to just understand the ecosystem of the banking sector. I want to look into the respective institutions. And for example, if we go to commercial banks, let's pick an example of Kenya Commercial Bank. What do we need to know about the Kenya Commercial Bank? What do you want to know about Kenya Commercial Bank? Just as an example. When I pick one other example like a microfinance, we just delve deeper into what do they do and what do we need to know about. And as such, I will require that you stick around and you subscribe to this channel because there's a lot more coming to you. Thank you so much so far for your likes, for your support, and I look forward to seeing you again on my next episode.